I want you to do something strange with me for the next half hour. Go outside. Not really. Stay where you are, but in your mind. Go stand at the end of your own driveway and turn around and look at your house. Look at it the way a stranger would, the gutter you keep meaning to fix, the window of the room nobody uses anymore, the porch light you leave on out of habit for somebody who doesn't live there. That building is the most spiritually significant piece of real estate in your life. And I guess you've never once thought about it that way. We're going to walk through it together. 12 rooms, 12 places. And in every one of them, there's a verse that belongs there. Not floating in the air somewhere. Not on a list you'll lose, but tied to a floorboard so that 6 months from now you can't stand at your own kitchen sink without it coming to mind. That's the point of doing it this way. You've read these verses before. You've probably read all 12. Reading them again in a row won't change anything, and I'm not going to insult you by pretending it will. But a verse with an address is different. A verse with an address ambushes you. So, standing in the driveway, let's start with the ground it's sitting on. Standing in the driveway. Unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labour in vain. Psalm 127:1. Solomon wrote that, which is almost funny when you think about it. The man who built the temple. 7 years, 30,000 men. Cedar hauled down from Lebanon. Stone cut so precisely they didn't hear a hammer on the site. Nobody in the ancient world knew more about the labour that goes into a building. And he says, unless the Lord does it, all of that is nothing. The word for house there is bayith, and it means both things at once. The structure and the family living in it. In Hebrew, you can't separate them. The building and the marriage are one word. Now look at what you built. 30, 40, 50 years of labour. The down payment you scraped together. The mortgage you finally burned. The roof twice. The furnace 3 times. The bathroom you did yourselves and still argue about. The children you raised inside those walls and the money you didn't spend on yourselves so they could go somewhere. All of that is real work, and none of it is what held this up. I'd like you to think about the year that should have ended you. Every long marriage has at least one. The diagnosis, the layoff, the thing your son did, the 6 months you don't talk about even now. You survived it, and you've mostly filed it under, we got through it. You didn't get through it. You were carried through it, and you were too busy carrying to notice. Stand there a second longer before we go in. At the front door. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Joshua 24:15. You've seen this one on a plaque. Probably in somebody's entryway, in cursive next to a bowl of keys. Hear when he actually said it. Joshua's 110 years old. This is the last speech of his life. He dies 4 verses later. He's standing in front of a whole nation, and he does something no preacher today would dare. He lays out their options honestly. You can serve the gods your fathers served on the other side of the river. You can serve the gods of the people whose land you're standing on. He doesn't pretend the alternatives aren't attractive. Then he plants the flag. Me and my house. 2 things in that sentence that matter for you standing at your own front door. It's public. He says it out loud in front of everybody, which means he can be held to it. That's the difference between a conviction and a decision. One lives in your head where nobody can check it. And it's future tense. We will serve. 110 years old at the very end. And he's still talking about what his household is going to do. Not what it did. Not the good years. What's ahead? Now, before we go in, I have to say something to some of you. And I'd rather say it here at the door than have you carry it through the whole house. Some of you are walking this alone. There are 2 of you living here, and you've been the only one praying for 20 years. Your spouse might even go to church with you. They will not sit down and open a Bible with you, and you've made a kind of peace with that which isn't really peace. You can still make Joshua's declaration. He said, me and my house, while standing in front of a crowd that hadn't agreed to anything yet. He wasn't reporting a consensus. He was staking a claim over a household and inviting them to catch up. Everything I'm about to walk you through works on one person. Every single verse. Keep listening. Come in. The kitchen sink. Bearing with one another and forgiving each other. Colossians 3:13. Here's where the dishes are, and here's where I want to talk about the throat. You know what I mean. He clears his throat. He's cleared it the same way for 41 years. 3 times. Always 3. And there is a small violent place in your soul that lights up every time. Or she tells a story with 19 unnecessary details, and you can see the ending coming from 4 minutes away, and you have to arrange your face. Or he cannot walk past a light switch without saying something about it. Now here's the thing about that list. Nobody's sinning. There's no repentance available for any of it. You can't ask a man to stop clearing his throat, and you can't ask a woman to compress her stories. And the couples who try end up in a fight where both of them are technically right. So what does Scripture actually say? The word Paul uses is anekomai. It means to put up with, to endure, to hold yourself back from reacting. That's it. That's the counsel. Not resolve it, not communicate about it until it dissolves. Put up with it. And I've come to think this is one of the more merciful things in the New Testament, for a reason nobody ever says out loud. You cannot become a patient human being around someone who never irritates you. It's not possible. Patience isn't a thing you get in a quiet time. It's built the way muscle is built, by resistance, over decades in small, unglamorous increments. So God gave you a person with a handful of permanent, harmless, maddening habits, and then asked you to love them anyway, every day, since 1979. That's not a design flaw in your marriage, that's the machinery. You're standing in the middle of the workshop where God has been slowly making you into someone bearable. Ask your spouse, sometime this week, what your version of the throat is. They'll know instantly. That's the funny part. They've known for years and they've been putting up with it, quietly, the whole time. The table. Let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. James 1:19, sit down. James gives you 3 things and the order isn't decoration. It's a chain. Hearing slows the speaking. Slow speaking cools the anger, which means James thinks anger is downstream of listening. And if you fix the first one, you never have to manage the third. Here's how this breaks at your table specifically. You stop listening because you already know. That's the honest version. You've heard the story. You can identify the sentence from the first 4 words and predict where it lands, so you're not listening. You're waiting. Composing. Ready to answer the version you've already assembled in your head. And 9 times out of 10, you're right. That's what makes it impossible to quit. But the 10th time she was telling you something new. Something she'd been working up to for a while, maybe since Tuesday. And you answered the old thing, the way you always do. And she looked at her plate and said, never mind, it's nothing. You've heard, never mind, it's nothing, at this table. You have. That's where distance in a marriage comes from, not the fights. The fights are loud and they get resolved. It's the 10th time, over and over, until one of you simply stops starting. Tonight at supper, when they begin a story you're sure you've heard, let them finish it anyway. The desk where you open the bills. Love keeps no record of wrongs. 1 Corinthians 13:5. This is where the accounts live. The checkbook drawer, the folder, whatever you use. The place in your house where you keep track of what's owed. Paul's word here is an accounting term, logizomai. It's what you do when you enter an item in a ledger. Same word Romans uses for God crediting righteousness to a man's account. Bookkeeping language, straight through. So the verse says plainly, love does not keep books on people. And you keep books. I know you do, because everybody married more than 10 years does. You've got entries going back decades. What he said at your mother's funeral. What she did with the money in 97. The Christmas he chose his brother. The remark she made in front of company that you laughed off and have never once forgotten. You don't bring them up much. You don't need to. They're on the books and both of you know the balance. And in the middle of a bad night, you can produce a receipt from 1994 with the date on it. That's why we keep the ledger. It's not sentimentality, it's ammunition. Now I want to head off the objection because it's a fair one. How am I supposed to stop remembering? You're not. Nobody's asking you to develop amnesia, and any preacher who tells you godly people forget is selling something. The word isn't forget. The word is reckon. Stop treating it as a debt that's still outstanding. Stop carrying it as a balance that can be called in. You can remember an entry and close the account. Those are 2 different acts. Some of you have one entry that's much bigger than the others, and you know exactly which one it is, and you flinched a little when I started this section. Don't try to close that one alone on a Tuesday night, but close it this year. In humility, count others more significant than yourselves. Philippians 2:3. Strange place for a verse. Stay with me. This is the one room in the house where you're guaranteed to look at yourself every day, and this verse is about exactly what happens when you do. Count is a reckoning word again. Do the math and put them above you. Here's the marital version, and it's very specific. In every disagreement, there's a moment, usually about 90 seconds in, where you can see their point. It registers. Something in you goes, oh, he's not entirely wrong, and you decide not to concede it, because conceding costs you something. Position, face, the argument. Counting them more significant means that in that moment, you let them have it. I want to say something to the men here, because I've watched this go wrong for a long time. Somewhere along the line, a lot of us got the idea that leading a home meant winning in it. It never meant that. Read the next two verses. Paul's reason is Christ, who had every right to hold his position and let it go anyway. If that's the model, then the head of a house is the one who concedes first, which means the most spiritually serious thing that will happen in your home this month might be you saying, you're right before you're forced to. Look at yourself in that mirror and ask which of you concedes more. You already know the answer. You knew it before I finished the sentence. Short. 30 seconds. Real. The room in your own house where you learned one of these the hard way. Name the room, name the year, name what was said. Keep it unflattering. The version where you were the one in the wrong is the one people believe. The car in the garage. A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Proverbs 15:1. I put this one in the car on purpose. Think about where your worst conversations have happened, not the kitchen. The car, because in a car neither of you can leave, neither of you has to make eye contact, and there's a long, straight stretch of road with nothing to do but continue. Solomon's word for soft is rak. It's a word for something tender to the touch. And notice it's a soft answer. He's not telling you to agree. The content can be a flat disagreement. It's the delivery he's talking about. Because here's what almost nobody realizes about their own marriage. The damage isn't usually in the content. Take the worst argument you've had in the last 5 years and imagine it typed out on a page. Just the words. It would look nearly reasonable. Two people with different opinions about a real thing. The words weren't the problem. It was the pause before you answered. It was the little laugh. It was the way you said their name. So here's the smallest assignment in this whole house, and I think it might be the most powerful. When your spouse says something that irritates you, wait 2 seconds before you reply. 2. Count them. Do that for a month and you'll discover how much of your marriage has been running on reflex. The doorway of the room where one of you was sick. If they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls. Ecclesiastes 4:10. You know which room I mean. Every long marriage has one. Maybe it was the recovery after the surgery. Maybe it was the winter of the depression nobody named. Maybe it's a room you're in right now. Solomon's not being poetic here. He's writing about a world where a man travelling alone gets robbed, where the night is cold enough to kill you, where being by yourself isn't lonely. It's how you die. 2 are better than 1 because sooner or later one of them's going to be on the ground and physically unable to get up. So here's the question I want to ask in this doorway, and it's the hardest one in the house. Which one of you does the lifting? You know, it's not even close. In most long marriages, there's a designated strong one, and everybody in the family knows who it is, including the grandchildren. And here's what I've watched happen for years. That person has never once been carried. Not because their spouse wouldn't, because they never asked. They decided somewhere around 1988 that their job was to stay standing. And they've stayed standing. And they are tired in a way they have never described out loud to a single human being. If that's you, the strong one, I want you to say one true sentence to your spouse this week about how you're actually doing. 1, not the whole thing. 1 sentence. And if that's not you, then your job is to ask and then to be quiet long enough for a real answer to come out. It'll take longer than you think. Let it be uncomfortable. The room that used to be a child's. These words shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house. Deuteronomy 6:6-7. It's a guest room now, or an office, or it's exactly the way she left it, which is its own kind of thing. The Hebrew word behind teach diligently is shanan, and it means to sharpen, to whet a blade. It's repetition against a surface until an edge appears. That's what Moses is describing. Not a lesson, 1,000 passes, And look where he says it happens. When you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, when you rise. 4 ordinary moments, and not one of them is a formal teaching setting. He's describing a house where God comes up in the middle of things. Now, some of you are standing in that doorway with a specific grief, and I'm not going to talk around it. They don't walk with the Lord. You raised them in the church, you did the family devotions, or you meant to, and mostly didn't. And either way, here you are, and they're 44, and they don't believe any of it. And you've done the arithmetic on this 1,000 times in that doorway, and every version of the arithmetic ends with your name in it. 2 things, and then we'll move on. The sharpening Moses talks about is a lifetime process, and yours isn't over. There's not one word in Scripture that says the work stops when they turn 18 and move out. You have influence you've retired from using because you assumed the window closed. It didn't close. And the second thing, this house is still teaching. They come back. Thanksgiving or when something goes wrong, and they walk into this house and they see how their mother and father talk to each other at 72. That's a lesson. It's being delivered right now, whether you're conscious of it or not. And it may be the loudest sermon you have left. Something I want to tell you before we finish the house. I've been giving you the short version of every one of these. You can probably feel it. Each of these has an hour underneath it. And what I've handed you today is the top layer. Enough to change a room, not enough to change a year. So let me tell you what I built for the people who want the rest. It's called Founding Member. It's the library. Every video lesson we've made. The long ones. The ones that go through a passage word by word instead of in 6 minutes. All of it opens the day you join, and everything we make after that comes with it. Here's the part that matters at your age, and I'd want to know it if I were you. It doesn't go away. It isn't a channel that can get flagged, or an algorithm that decides tomorrow this kind of teaching isn't allowed anymore. It's a place. You go there in the morning with your coffee, and it's the same place it was yesterday, and the same place it'll be in 5 years. Nobody takes it away from you. The price locks the day you join and stays locked for as long as you stay. Not this year's price, your price, permanently. That's what founding means, and it's why there are only 1,000 seats. When they're gone, that's the end of it. And I'll tell you what I actually want, which is this. The 2 of you at that kitchen table, going further into a passage than you've ever gone, and one of you looking up in the middle because something landed. That's the household this is for. Not a perfect one. A quiet one with the book open more often than it's shut. Links below. Look at it after we're done, not now. 2 rooms left, and they're the 2 that matter most. The hallway at 3 a.m. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. Ephesians 4:26. One of you is out here. It's dark, the house is ticking, and you came out because you couldn't lie there next to them one more minute. Notice what Paul permits first. Be angry. It's allowed. He doesn't tell you not to be angry with your spouse. He assumes you will be, and he doesn't call it sin. He puts the whole weight on what you do next. And what he says is, put a clock on it, not resolve it. He doesn't say settle every dispute before bed. And I'm glad because some things can't be settled in an evening, and forcing it just produces a phony treaty at 11:40 at night that neither of you believes. He says don't let the sun go down on the anger itself, the hot part, the part that wants them to hurt a little. There was a couple I knew, married 61 years, and their entire rule was that they said goodnight. That's all. Not resolved, not apologised, not explained. The word goodnight out loud, even on the nights it came through gritted teeth and fooled absolutely nobody. 61 years. Go back down the hall. You don't have to fix it. Say the word. The bed. Therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Genesis 2:24. Last room and the oldest verse in the house. This one's from before there were houses. 3 verbs. Leave, hold fast, become. Nobody notices the middle one. Dabak. It means to cling, to stick. It's the word you'd use for glue. And elsewhere in the Old Testament it's used for skin clinging to bone. It's not a feeling, and it's not a legal arrangement. It's a grip. It's the thing you do with your hands when the boat is moving. But it's the 3rd verb I want to leave you with, and it's the reason I put this one last. Become. You did not become one flesh at that altar. Whatever happened that day, it wasn't completion. Genesis puts it in the future tense. They shall become. and it's been true every year since, which means the two of you have been becoming one flesh for 4 decades, and you'll be becoming it the week one of you dies. Here's why that matters tonight. Somewhere along the line, the two of you quietly decided the marriage is what it is. The shape's set. You know each other, the pattern's fixed, and whatever's left is maintenance. That is not what this verse says. There is more of this available to you at 74 than you have currently received. Not a better version of the past. Something you have not had yet. You know each other's habits. You know the footsteps in the hall, the tone that means don't ask, how she takes it, what he's like on the second day of a headache. What you don't know is each other's soul, what she's afraid of at 4 a.m, what he's never forgiven himself for, what either of you actually expects when this is over. 12 rooms, 12 verses. Do this and in a year you'll know. And two people who know each other's souls have something that doesn't depend on health, or money, or how many years are left in the account. 10 seconds. Where you're standing right now, or the last thing your spouse said to you today. Ordinary is the goal. They're in the other room right now, or asleep, or at the store. Start at the sink. It's the easiest one and nobody has to say anything solemn to begin. You're not finished becoming.